They'll probably start to trickle in, but let's go ahead and get started. So, welcome everyone. I'm Blake from bourbonr.com. This is the Bourbonr Blind Tasting. Each month, I send out samples to different whiskey enthusiasts, bloggers, reviewers, everything, and just let them taste blind. So every bottle is purchased by me. No samples are given from distilleries or anything like that. I send them out. They do the reviews, submit the reviews. They don't even know who's on the panel until just today, so they can't even share information. And then we take a look at see what everybody thought about these bourbons. So let's go ahead and get started, and we're going to go around and let everyone introduce themselves. Start on my left. Brett, go ahead.
Hi, I'm Brett Atlas, part of the Bourbon and Banter crew. Bourbonbanter.com, at Bourbon Banter, Twitter, Instagram. You can find me at Brett Atlas, same places, Twitter and Instagram. Pretty excited for this. I love blind tasting. It's one of the few times I actually look forward to making a complete fool of myself.
All right, thanks. Travis, you are up.
Yeah, my name is Travis Hill. I'm just a big fan of bourbon. I know all these degenerates personally, so I'm very honored to be a part of this. Blind tasting is something that I enjoy doing and making a fool of myself, as Brett said. So I think it's very educational for people, and I'm really excited to see what we come up with here tonight. And, you know, I think we're going to learn a lot. So I'm really thankful to be here to do this with you guys. So thank you.
Carrie, and everyone is lucky to see me and Carrie live 2 nights in a row. So just kidding.
Yeah, hey, this is Carrie from Suburbia, SUBOURBIA.com. I would not go there right now because I haven't written an article in like 90 days, but it's coming really soon. It's going to be an article at some point, maybe in the next couple of days. But on Twitter, I'm at bourbon_gamer. And you can find me on the Bourbon Roundtable podcast along with Blake and a couple other good fellas. And excited to be here. I'll be honest, I got the samples and didn't realize how quickly I had to pound those samples for this. I think I might have been the last one to get them. So I apologize if some of mine are a little abrupt, but as we go through them, I can kind of remember a little bit better maybe what I was thinking at the time.
Very cool. All right, Ryan, you're up.
Yeah, so Ryan Lintz, I have a website, a blog, thebourbonbuddy.com. Not like these big wigs here on the showing tonight, but yeah, I have a small. I do mostly reviews on the site, and also I'm on Instagram at the Bourbon Buddy, and then I'm also Edwin Vargas, which was on Blind Tasting #2. I'm on the Cleveland Bourbon Club with him, where we do, you know, a small group of 20 bourbon enthusiasts that do blind tastings every month. And that doesn't make me an expert. I'm sure I'm a total fail when it comes to these, but it's always fun. I always like to be embarrassed, so let's go.
I feel like
We all have that in common.
Yeah.
I really feel like we need to, when we introduce you, we need to have that My Buddy song playing. It's my buddy, my bourbon buddy.
I really want to have, like, you know how baseball, they have walkout songs.
Right, yeah.
Everyone should get their own walkouts music. Yeah, we'll work on that for the next episode. But all right, well, let's go ahead and get this thing rolling. So tonight's blind tasting, this may come as a surprise to some of you, but the theme was 4 roses. So everything you tasted was 4 roses. Anything from a standard single barrel to some private picked stuff to limited editions. So we're going to start from the bottom to the top. And
That's hilarious.
we're going to, yeah. So let's just, before we get into all of it, any reactions to the 4 roses?
That's crazy. I really thought it was Buffalo Trace the whole time.
That's what I thought too. So all my guesses are Buffalo, because I had to go with the theme. So.
Yeah, I really thought it was Buffalo Trace. I didn't pick up a single 4 roses, really. That's
Well,
crazy.
the funny thing is, the last tasting we did, it was all Weeders, and I think 3 people said, "Is this a 4 roses tasting?"
Yeah,
And then I did a 4 roses tasting, and Travis had a few 4 roses guesses, but no one else.
And I cut out some too. I will say that I couldn't keep guessing 4 roses because I thought it was ridiculous. But
Brett, what'd you think? Surprised by the 4 roses?
Well, I wasn't looking for a common theme, which I probably should have been. I think one of them I did guess it, reminding me of a 4 roses, and then I kind of went away from that.
Are you gonna put up what our comments were on it on the screen as we go?
There's gonna be some hurt feelings if you do that.
No, I actually need to see mine.
It's hold on. I'll let me see if I can send it to you in the chat.
Yeah.
Some of them tasted like turkey to me, like Russell's Reserve. I thought I was getting a lot of that, and like MGP too, which I know is kind of close to like a V. So it's not surprising.
Yeah.
I did. Oh, I guessed 1 Four Roses. I just checked.
Fine, Carrie, send me your email really quick.
Yeah. I'll put it in the chat. Yeah, because some of mine, like I think at one point I called it Oregon shit craft whiskey.
I was close to that kind of description.
Was that Yellow Label?
Yeah, I think I said one was shit Oregon and one was shit New York whiskey.
Yeah, I think there was it's funny in all these things. It just like I said, being on the other side of the table is always entertaining to watch. But for some reason, Hudson Bourbon has shown up as a guest in every single tasting. I still haven't put Hudson Bourbon in any of these. So now I'm going to.
It's everybody's wild card for shitty bourbon.
Yeah. No offense, Hudson, but
offense actually a little bit, but
just a hair. All right, 1 second. We'll I can always edit
do that.
So let me send this to you.
Did you go in order from youngest to oldest or something with your number?
No, so the order was pretty it was pretty random.
Okay.
I try to keep it random, and then the numbers the only thing they tie to are dates for like one's my birth year, one's my wife's birth year, my kids' birth years. So there's no real tie to that either. All right, Kara, I just sent that to you. So I try to keep that as subjective as possible. So now that we got the 4, so it was 4 roses. We have a few surprises in here, a few things that were a little tricky. But we're going to get started. So let me go ahead and pull this back up now that Kerry has his notes. And so in 8th place, it's sample number 05 with a 75.5. So 75.5, sample number 5. It is a 4 Roses 125th, but the trick on this is this bottle's been open for about 3 years. So,
interesting.
I had this theory that 4 Roses doesn't do well with oxygen. It kind of peaks pretty quickly and goes down. And I've always thrown this bottle and tasting the 4 Roses small batch limited editions, and it always does bad. And I'm like, no, I remember really loving this bottle. What's going on? So this was kind of objectively saying, yeah, 4 Roses doesn't do great with airtime. So what's interesting is Carrie actually had a very high review of this, and you actually liked it, but Brett gave it a lower score. And I'm right there with you, Brett. So let's kind of go around. Let's start with you, Ryan. What'd you think of sample 05?
Yeah, so this was, I'm looking at my scores. This was my least favorite of the group. I got some funkiness to it. Like, I actually guessed that it was a dusty. I got like this dry kind of rose petal, almond. It smelled funky. And then also the taste, I got a little bit, sometimes when I taste some funkier dusties, I get this weird, and this is just my experience, like antique hand soap. I don't know, like old soap. It's weird, I know. But yeah, so I guessed it was some funky dusty to kind of throw us off the scent. And while I thought it was kind of unique and definitely wasn't a daily drinker, I would drink it, but it was my least favorite of the group.
Yeah. Carrie, what'd you think?
Yeah, so it looks like I did like this one. I said it smells like a weeder a little bit. It's got a nice spice on the entry, long-lasting finish. I actually thought it might be Weller Special Reserve. I didn't think you were going to send us anything nice, to be honest. I didn't have it. I thought this was going to be all like shelf turds. I didn't know how many people were going to get it, but I did score this an 88. So you know, there may have been some oxidation. Maybe my sample bottle didn't have the soap in it that the other guys did or something.
Time to go back to the sample. Do you have any left?
Maybe I was before.
This may have been my highest rated one, actually.
I believe it was, actually. If you go to tab 2.
Yeah, I can see it here. I think it was my highest rated one.
Yeah.
Huh, I'm pretty good.
Travis, what'd you think?
Yeah, Carrie. This was my second lowest, so it just solidifies what I think about the 125th. I think it's pretty overrated. It's my experience with the pour, and I've probably been through 8 bottles now. My experience is a lot of subtle flavors that you really have to sit there and think about what you're drinking. I got the real unique nose like Ryan did, probably my favorite nose, but I thought it was one-dimensional. The finish was real light, kind of sweet on the body. I don't know. I didn't think it was anything that special. So,
All right, Brett. I'm with you. I'm with you.
I didn't like it.
Your score.
I had this once before last year for the first time, and I didn't love it then either. But it was there's something in what you're saying about it not doing well over time. That I remember it being. I didn't like it that much, but it was a little better than this. I was trying to figure out what this was. Again, I had no idea what you put in there, and so. At first, it smelled like a rye to me. There was no sweetness at all. I did get the spice, and then the taste was dry. It was oaky. It was bitter, and then the finish just went gone. So I didn't like it at all.
Yeah. Well, and that's. Or go ahead.
Yeah, Blake. I was just actually on my site yesterday. I put up a review of the Four Roses Small Batch 2017. And I was looking online, and I saw it, and I just looked it up. I was like, someone did a blind of these and put it on the website. It was you. It was your group. And the 2013 finished dead last.
Yeah.
Blind.
And so that was kind of what led to this. So I won't break the entire secret, but there is a fresh pour of 125 in here as well. So we'll get to that a little bit later. So next up is sample 04. It came in with an average rating of 77.5.
Sorry, y'all. My dog took a crap in the basement.
Oh,
good to know.
So,
was some of that in sample 4?
Yeah, well, so that's in sample 4, 77.5, and sample 4 is a 2015 Four Roses Small Batch Limited Edition.
Get out of here!
Yes.
Yep.
Yes.
No
2015.
Love
way.
it.
Yep.
Vindication.
I don't buy
it. So, and let me look at the. So, what's interesting about these is between the 2015 and the 2013, they're very similar, except for there's just a lot more age on the 2013. You know, the 2013 is an 18-year OBSV, a 13-year OBSK, and a 13-year OESK, whereas the 2015 is a 16-year OBSK, 15-year OESK, a 14-year OESK, and an 11-year OBSV. I actually really like the 2015, and I think I like it a little bit more than the 2013. But all right, you had a good reaction, Brett. Let's go back.
There's no way. There's no way that I drank that. Honest to God, I had about 4 glasses of it this weekend, and it tasted nothing. That's my favorite Four Roses that I've ever had. There's something wrong with that one.
I don't know. I rated it pretty high.
It was opened just about a month or so ago. We did the tasting.
That could be me then. There's something wrong with me.
Yeah. I was gonna say, what did you try after? Did you eat like something really spicy that night?
Maybe I shouldn't do all these in one night again.
Yeah. That plays a role as well. So Travis, you had the highest rating with this one, with an 86. Talk about that a little bit.
So the one thing that I want to say about all these samples is there was only a couple that really I thought were really good that I would suggest that everybody go out and buy. And this was one of them. I just got all the classic notes. It was real fruity, a lot of berry, chocolate. I thought the body was real good. I'm just reading off my notes. Real good finish. I got a little tobacco and mint. I knew that was one of a few of them that I knew for sure, in my opinion, was Four Roses. Mm-hmm. And I really enjoyed it. I thought it was great. It was the first one I tried, and I loved it. And that was the second highest rating that I gave.
I just poured it again.
That's what I was just looking at this one. Yeah, you had Four Roses was your guess. You're the highest rating, and then Ryan, you had a fairly high rating with an 83 as well.
Yeah.
What'd you think about this one?
So I liked it. I just like Carrie, I went down the path of Buffalo Trace. I thought it was like a baby Saz, but I was getting some rye notes, cinnamon, toasted oak, caramels. There was some sweetness. I said, and I absolutely loved the nose. And then I had a lot of cinnamon, butterscotch, and honey, and some dry oak on the palate. I wrote it into my finish as well. There's just loads of cinnamon that I got on this particular one. So I was leaning towards, it's probably a higher rye. I don't know, maybe baby Saz. But yeah, I liked it for sure. Mm-hmm. And I love the 2015 was the one that, really got me into the small batch limited editions again. And initially, I didn't really like the 2014, although it really grew on me as it got a little bit of air. But then I had the 2015 when it came out. I was like, okay, all right. So, yeah. Now I'm wishing I scored it higher, but yeah.
No, that's okay. I'm actually drinking a little bit of 2014 now, but I thought the 2015 was excellent. Yeah. Carrie, what do you think about this one?
So I'll be totally honest. This was the last sample that I had. I had it last night at the end of our round table. And I actually think I forgot that I was supposed to do a review on it. And the very last sip I took of it, I realized that I should have been taking notes on it. So it was like an instant reaction, and I thought it was Elisha Craig's small batch. I did give it an 85. I thought it was pretty decent, but I really didn't have much tasting notes on it. It's funny that, because that's my favorite Four Roses, that it didn't hit me immediately as like, damn, you're drinking the good stuff.
Yeah. Which, it just says a lot about the other kind of perceptive things that we have that go into drinking bourbon, seeing the bottle, paying a high dollar amount for it, chasing after it, drinking it with people you enjoy being around. That whole thing really comes out in blind tastings. And, I don't discredit those kind of things at all, but it's just funny how, I've literally tasted something that week and then scored it lower in a blind tasting. It's like, how do I do that? Like, am I that bad at this or no? But I just think, we're typically not as great at this as we think we are sometimes, unfortunately. So anyways, so on to the next sample with let's see. So this is,
can I just say something really quick before you move on?
Yep.
I just poured some more of this, expecting to change my mind, and I didn't.
Really?
But I still love the 15. I'll get off this thing, and I'll tell you I love it. I don't know what it is, but something about the finish was way off for me on this.
Yeah, who knows? I would say maybe it's the batch, but I think they only did one batch on.
Yeah. All right. Sorry.
And actually, I wanted to add one thing that I've thought about, and I just want to add, Blake, of what you mentioned around, we do all these tastings and they're blind, and we, have a hard time at picking out the distillery, let alone like the particular bottling. If you guys and maybe some of the viewers have seen like Somm and Somm in the bottle, in particular Somm, where these master sommeliers they're trying to become master sommeliers, and these guys are drinking great wine, and they're not only saying like from what region to what vineyard, but what actual vintage, and they're like doing it in multiple. It just blows my mind. And then here we are doing these samples of bourbon, and we can't even get the freaking distillery. I don't know what that's like, but
that's one of my goals, is to have like the grant or what master sommelier of bourbon on one of these to see, because you watch those shows and they'll nose them and call it, and I'm like, how is that even possible? It's funny to watch, but
some of them can even get arrowwood pie crust as a note.
Yeah, it's been falling for
fresh cut garden hose, was that was one of them.
I think it was on maybe the first one, or maybe I know there was an Esquire show called Uncorked, where the guy would get fresh tennis balls in white wine, and I'm like, that's an interesting call.
What about antique hand soap? I don't know.
Yeah, antique
That was
hand
a good
soap is
one.
actually maybe my new favorite. That's coming out later.
I'm stealing that.
That's coming in my next review. All right, so sample number 13 comes in at 6th place with an average score of 78.5. So here's where we get a little tricky. This is a reblend, my own reblend of the 2013 Four Roses Small Batch Limited Edition. So what does that mean? And I just realized I sent Carrie the spreadsheet, so he now has all the answers. So
Oh, he's cheating. You know
no
he's cheating.
No cheating.
Oh, he's cheating. Get out of here.
I'm just
Yeah,
seeing
you're
what everybody
cheating.
said.
Yeah.
I'm not
So,
changing anything. This was. I want to go first on this one.
Yeah, so sample 13 is a reblend. So I took, it is 36% of the 2013 Four Roses Single Barrel Limited Edition, which was an OBSK, a store pick of OBSV from Market Square Liquors in Tallahassee. So that was 18%. Then I had the 2012 Single Barrel Limited Edition, which was an OESK at 27%. And then Elliott Select, the OESK at 18%.
I like that.
Yeah, I got way too intoxicated trying to blend these stupid things up because, I feel like you just, when you're dealing with such small quantities, you blend it and you're like, man, it's just a little bit off. All right, let's try a little bit of that. It's like, I think I went a little too far. All right. But so there are a lot of fun to do, and I'll include all these blends in the post as well. But kind of the thing here is to see, how close we can get with some of these available, well, not available bottles, but bottles that were available to some of the small batch limited editions. I think one of the knocks on Four Roses is you spend $125 for the small batch limited edition, but there may be a store pick down the road that's selling for $50 that's just as good, or you might like even more. So that is sample 13. So Travis, why don't you start us off on this one?
Okay. Let's see. I gave this one an 83, which I think is pretty good. I wouldn't say go run out and buy it. I did get a lot of alcohol in the nose. I definitely picked up the baking spices, so I feel good about that. Some caramel. There was a lot of sweetness and a real good finish on that one. I couldn't guess Four Roses. I thought maybe it was like a low proof OESK. I thought maybe Beam, it was kind of spicy. But at an 83, I mean, I really like that one. It wasn't something that I had to have, but I enjoyed it. Not much more to add.
Yeah. All right, Carrie. Sorry, I meant to let you lead us off because you wanted to, but then I forgot.
That's okay. So this one, I started off with a great line. I said 13 was not so lucky for me. I said it fell right off the edge after I tasted it. It went bitter in a hurry with very little finish. The lack of a finish makes me think it's less than 6 years old. I said probably some craft whiskey from Oregon or something. They should stick to mining gold and stuff.
And stuff.
And I gave it a 73, and I said some craft whiskey out of Oregon, but who really cares? And that was my review on it. I did not like it at all. There was no finish. I don't know how. I remember this distinctly. There were two that I remember had the finish just dropped off to nothing, and it was just bitter left over. And this was one of the two that, for me, I could distinctly remember it just died into nothing after trying it.
I thought the finish lasted a long time. That was one of my notes. So that just shows the difference in experience from person to person.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Let's see because I'm reading Brent's too. So
yeah, it is very very personal with just preferences. Like it's crazy how much people's preferences change from person to person. All right, Ryan, what'd you think?
So this was actually my favorite of all of them. And it's funny when you talked about the blend that you made, and I was trying to find it. I think I drank it all, but I did a similar type of Four Roses with not as nice single barrels, like more store pick ones, but OBSK, OESK, and OBSV. I blended, and I actually really, really liked it. So And the 13 on the nose, it was sweet. I thought it was like a sweeter bourbon. So on the nose, which I tend to like, cocoa, caramel, I got some orange and some rye spice. On the palate, I got some brown sugar, caramel, cocoa, some berry, some oak. And then I also, at the end, I got some, like Carrie was saying, I got some wood tannins, some little bit of dryness at the end that kind of threw it down a little bit. But overall, no, I really enjoyed this one.
Very good. Brett?
Yep. This is the one that I think I came closest on. I was pretty sure it was a Four Roses at first. It was sweet. What else did I say? It's something really kind of just off on the nose that I couldn't put my finger on. I just re-poured it. I'm checking again. Yeah, it's pretty close for me. It makes sense what you said, how it was concocted.
What's interesting is this sample had by far the most notes within everyone's reviews. So I don't know if everyone just kind of drank it first and they weren't feeling fatigued, so they're writing a lot of notes, or if it was just a lot going on, which would make sense with those four different, those different levels of flavor.
It was memorable. Brett, what do you think of the finish on that one?
Disappointing. It wasn't. It didn't stick around very long.
Mm-hmm.
I didn't mention anything on the. I didn't note anything from a finish unless it really stood out, and that one I didn't write any notes.
But I like your last line is really good, Brett.
The last line? Which one?
It didn't stick around long enough.
Yeah.
To hear you cursing.
Which you're on a different one now.
We're sample 13.
Yeah, sample 13.
All right, hold on. So
skip ahead.
So Brett's, I
gave it a 70.
Brett's was finished disappointed and didn't stick around long enough to hear my cursing, which is funny because it seems like Carrie had the same issue with the finish on this bourbon, which I don't know. I would think age plays a big factor, but I've never heard a good scientific explanation of where the finish comes from.
Can I ask you this? All the sample bottles, did you clean them, or were they all the same way, or was there any possibility that some were tainted?
No, they're all the same. I mean, they're all from specialty bottle, pulled directly out of the case. Okay.
You didn't happen to wash them with some antique hand soap or anything?
Well, my wife actually makes her own antique hand soap, so that could not. Just kidding.
I'll be right back.
All right, let's keep it going. So we're not too long on this thing tonight. So sample number 9 comes in 5th place with an average score of 80. And sample number 9 is standard Four Roses single barrel. So just straight off the shelf, single barrel. We've all recommended it to somebody probably within the last week for who's getting into bourbon. Hey, what should I try? Okay, grab Four Roses single barrel. It's good, it's available, that whole thing. So I was actually pretty happy with this. Excuse me. Because I feel like in the other blind tastings, some of my standard recommendations have gotten just torn apart with some of the reviews. And this one was really tight. The highest score was 82. The lowest score was 78.
Okay.
Which is right where I put it.
It's tough to top a good OBSV anyway.
Yeah, it's Four Roses single barrel. So excuse me. All right, so let's Brett, why don't you give us your notes on this one, sample 09.
Yeah, well, I really screwed myself from the beginning because for some reason I was on the trail of a wheater, which was a mistake. But I got vanilla, oak, and sweetness, the same thing I get from. I mean, my favorite Four Roses single barrels I think have been OBSVs. My taste, decent balance, sweet and oak. Good finish. I mean, just a good solid bourbon. If I wasn't fooled into thinking I was looking for a wheater, but if not, I mean, I would recommend this to anybody. I think it's a great bottle.
Mm-hmm. Travis,
I'm kind of where he was. I don't know if I would recommend it as highly. I thought it was maybe an MGP, which doesn't surprise me because I know that shares a lot of characteristics with the OBSV. I gave this, might have been my lowest rating. I think it was my lowest rating.
Let's see.
I got the floral nose. I thought there was a nice sweet finish, a little bit of spice, sweet and fruity. I thought maybe it was like a really good Dickel pick or something. I wasn't a fan. Yeah, I've had a couple, but that was a shot out of left field for sure. I'll honestly, that is the bottle that got me into bourbon. That's why I love Four Roses today. I don't ever drink it nowadays. Obviously, there's better options. So my rating doesn't really surprise me, but I think my tasting notes are pretty spot on. And for someone who's getting into bourbon, that I still would recommend that based on all of this. I think that's a great recommendation for someone who is just getting into the spirit.
Yeah, I agree. You know, it's on basically every store shelf. It's $37 or $40, you know, depending on where you are. That's just, it's tough to beat. Carrie?
I had a weeder on this one. I said thin, 90 proof. Am I right with 90 proof?
100.
Okay, a little bit off. Nice caramel notes on the finish, slight burn. Must be a weeder. I thought this was Old Weller Special Reserve, but I did give it an 82. So I think I was right in line there with. I think I was the highest on this one. But we were all. I mean, it's interesting to see.
It was tight. Yeah.
We were all within a 4-point radius on this one. So I think we all thought this is a bourbon we should all have on our shelves. You know, a nice everyday bourbon to have.
Yeah, definitely. Ryan, fan of the Four Roses single barrel?
So I gave it a 79. I got some hay and grass, malt, and I also was getting some corn, which made me start to lean towards maybe this is a younger bourbon. Then on the palate, I got some caramel, vanilla, a little bit of malt, and like Carrie, I had like I thought it was 90-ish proof. I said I had really no idea. I thought it was a younger bourbon, although I didn't think it was bottom shelf. I said I still liked it, but I didn't think it was. It didn't really wow me.
Yeah. Which I mean, I don't think we expect to get a score of 95 from something like that. I mean, it'd be great if we did, but I think this fits in perfectly. I'll continue to suggest it to people, and you know, be on my top list for what people should try when they're getting into bourbon. I think this just reinforces that. Which so this next bourbon, let's see. So this is number 4 out of 8. This is going to catch some people by surprise. It is with an average score of 81.25.
What number is it?
Yeah, what number?
It is sample 18. Sample 18, average score 81.25.
Yeah.
This is the Al Young. Yep. So what's interesting is I think the Al Young is just a complicated pour. I've gone through my my own notes on it and kind of compared it to y'all's, and I don't think I don't know. It's just different because it's a blend of. I know there's a 23-year-old barrel in there. Let's see. It's OBSF 12-year, OBSK 15-year, OBSV 23-year, and OESV 13-year. So it's just this crazy mix that, I mean, I think it's really good whenever I taste it on its own, but I think it just throws people off whenever you're tasting it blind. So Ryan, let's start with you. What'd you think of the Al Young?
So I gave it an 85. I thought it was Brown-Forman. I was getting on the palate some banana notes, which I sometimes get with Brown-Forman. I wasn't particularly sure, although I thought it was a little bit younger. And the tasting, when I did it, I was getting corn. So again, I was kind of going towards a younger whiskey, although I still gave it 85. So I thought it was pretty damn good. So nose, corn, caramel, brown sugar, baking spice, vanilla, and cocoa. I get a lot of cocoa on the nose. And then on the palate, corn, banana, caramel, and I got some peach as well. But no, I think I gave it. I think this was the third highest score. I gave 18.
Carrie, what'd you think?
That's crazy.
What's interesting is Carrie is doing a review of Al Young's right now. So
crazy. I trashed this bourbon, And I from the second we opened this up, I was looking at this. I gave it a 74. I called this Hudson bourbon. I said it was a decent nose, but the taste is very bitter, very little finish. This stuck out to me as being another one that had no finish on it. I said it was less than 6 years old, probably made in New York, and New York makes shitty bourbon. I wonder how some of this might be influenced if it's the first pour you have of the night, because I did do typically, but I had to kind of rush to get these done. I would do 1 pour a night, usually after dinner, and some of them I would do maybe 3rd or 4th pour of the night. Some of them probably was right after dinner, and I wonder how much of that ties into a pour of bourbon, how much it might affect you, what you had, what you had to eat, what you had to drink, or whatever you had, before trying it. Because I'm really perplexed by this, because I just had Al Young here 20 minutes ago and thought it was delicious. So I'm definitely surprised by it, but yeah, I thought it was shitty.
I think the way that I did it, and I just think this is a good time to put my 2 cents in.
Mm-hmm.
I tasted through all 8 of them about halfway one night, and then 8 2 nights later. So I had my notes, and then I kind of went back and was like, okay, well, I feel more like this than I did that.
Mm-hmm.
So I don't know. I know that's still 4 ounces, but I mean, we can put 4 ounces away, no problem.
Yeah. Yeah. Which I think that is a pretty good way of doing it, of like revisiting after you've already tasted, because things change. I forget, it was, who's the chef at Le Bernardin, Eric Repair. He was talking about he'll have his chefs whenever they're trying out a new dish, he'll have them taste just standard. I think it was like Swiss cheese, like straight from the grocery store, as basic and processed Swiss cheese as you can get, because that never changes. So they taste that before and say, okay, it tastes a little saltier to me tonight. Now I know going into tasting this dish, my palate's a little more sensitive to salt. Or, hey, it's very bland, and they'll taste that. So I think setting that kind of benchmark and doing this is really a good thing to do, but it's just tough, because the Bourbonr cracks the whip on getting these samples done in a week's time. So
I think everybody has, a different theory about when they should really try stuff. A friend of mine right down the street comes over to hang out. He will never try anything good on his first pour. He usually wants to have like an Eagle Rare or a standard 4 Roses or something, because he swears by, getting started with something instead of pouring something good to begin with. So
that's my new thing, is I got to have at least 2 pours before I go pour a sample of something that I'm really looking forward to, that I maybe only have an ounce or 2. I'm going to have a couple drinks beforehand, make sure I'm good, and then drink.
Yeah. Brett, what'd you think about the Al Young?
The Al Young is a crazy bottle for me. I'm all over the place with it all the time. I think the first time I had it, I hated it. And then the more I've had it, it's not only grown on me, but I really do like it. And even this one, if I just look at my notes here, and I don't remember having this one, but if looking at my notes, caramel, vanilla, nuttiness, good proof, balanced, dries out at the end. It makes sense. That 23 year, I think, really adds some dryness, and some of that 15 also. Good finish. I mean, I gave it a low rating, but I mean, first of all, this is what the blind tasting takes away, is that kick-ass bottle.
Right.
I mean, that is one of the coolest bottles that come out in the last decade. But even taking that away, I mean, listen, I'll say it. It's a quality bourbon. It's whether it's your favorite or not, you did a great job with it. And I just had 2 glasses of it while you guys were talking. I enjoy it a lot. I gave it an 83. That's a respectable score. It probably deserves better, but I don't know. Sometimes I love it, and sometimes it's just kind of okay.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and that's where I think where more of the enthusiast comes out on some of these bottles. Because, like, I agree with Brett. It's probably the coolest bottle design I can think of in recent memory. And how often do you get to try a 23-year-old bourbon? So I think that plays a part in the enjoyment factor. But then if we strip it all away, a lot of us are just looking for more sweet notes, enjoyable, that kind of stuff, balance. but what the Al Young provides is a little more of that dryness on the finish, which comes from 23 years. So it's just interesting to see how our preferences change between blind tasting and drinking, in the community, all that kind of stuff as well. So it continues to pop up in these blind tastings, but it still is a really interesting thing to see. All right, moving on to number 3, which is sample 16. Sample 16 is a fresh cracked 2013 125.
That's
so
great.
Here's the interesting thing. So sample 16 average score was 81.5. Old 2013 small batch limited edition was a 75.5. So a difference of 6 points. And really maybe even more than that. Especially, I got to start with you, Brett. So
I was afraid of that. I was just comparing my notes, and I wanted to crawl into my table.
But I mean, let's see. That's 16 is so you went from a 55 a 55 on the one that had been open and oxidized, all the way up to a
80.
Yeah, an 80. So,
but the tasting notes, I mean, so different. I mean, it went from no sweetness to a lot of sweetness, even some banana. I didn't know what this was. I mean, it was completely different to me. So if nothing else, it shows you how something can change over time. Mm-hmm. But I did think it was kind of thin. My guess was MGP. I had no idea. I mean, it was totally different.
This was basically just a personal mission for me to say, these bottles are not doing as well over time as I thought they were.
Yeah. I think another question, though, is how much was left in the bottle? I don't know if it's so much a factor of how long it's been open. But
no, I would say so. So I probably drank like half the bottle in 2 months, and then it sat for a year. Then I'd take a pour out. And it sat at probably an 1/8 full for at least a year. And I think that, the ratio of air to bourbon in a bottle, the oxidation levels definitely increase. So not to say that, if you open a bottle of Four Roses, you need to drink it right away. I mean, there's nothing wrong with that, but it just is interesting to me to see how it's the exact same bottle and it did change over time.
Yeah.
So, Carrie, you want to talk about your notes on this one?
Yeah, I thought it was. I said it was a nice entry-level bourbon, maybe a Buffalo Tracer 1792, a nice spice. Finish was a little bit shorter than I wanted, but I thought the finish was very nice and actually had strong vanilla notes. I actually said the last line was this may be Four Roses small batch. Mm-hmm. And my guess was Four Roses small batch. So I actually meant to write the word limited edition. Right?
Oh, stop it.
And accidentally hit enter on that. I had an 82. I really liked it. I do find the whole concept of new versus open for a while very interesting. I think there hasn't, you get into 3 years of a bourbon being opened, regardless of how short it is, how much does it change over time? And I think you have different schools or different thoughts with that, whether it changes or doesn't change. But I definitely like this one a lot more than. Oh no, I didn't actually. I thought it was pretty close to what I said for the old one too. But just different notes for me. Definitely liked it a little bit better on the finish.
You guys ever use that argon gas spray in your bottles when they get less than half full? Because I do.
Does anyone know if it works? I mean, I do.
Yeah, so I've used it in the past. I wish I would have. I think Breaking Bourbon had a really good article on, or no, that may have just been open bottles in general, like the percentage
and storage. I think of them.
Yeah. I've used it, but not like religiously enough to say, yeah, it helps or it doesn't help. So,
I mean, this exercise is an argument for trying, I would say.
Yeah.
I do want to point out real quick in our chat, 22 Catch 22 said he could see where confusing Four Roses and MGP is pretty easy. Mm-hmm. So I think there are.
Yep, absolutely.
Yeah, I think that's a fair statement. Want to to point that out. That
well, isn't it? I don't remember exactly, but whenever MGP was Seagrams and all that, aren't they using a Four Roses yeast or something?
Supposedly, it's the V yeast that they use,
Okay.
and the rye content is, I think it's
About this.
35% versus 36% or something like that.
Yeah. Yeah. And that's what, I mean, I know there's definitely the historic tie, but just from a production standpoint, I thought there was a connection as well. So Travis, you actually guessed Four Roses on this as well. Let's talk about your notes.
Well, yeah, I guess Four Roses.
Four Roses you guessed on one of the most iconic Four Roses limited editions, but
I thought it was Yellow Label, to be honest with you. It definitely tasted like Four Roses, but I have a weird relationship with the 125th because this was released right after I got into bourbon, and it's the first limited bottle I ever released. I didn't even have a concept of limited. I just fell in love with Four Roses. And I got tons of these, man. I drank them on the rocks. I freaking mixed them with ginger ale. I've probably been through 8 or 9 of these bottles so far. And I always tell people, you can ask anybody, with this pour, it's super fickle. It's very difficult to get it to where you can really appreciate all the flavors. It's got to be open for a little while. You got to add some water to it, really be ready for it. So it's not a surprise to me that I tasted an ounce of this and just kind of thought it was sweet and had some vanilla and wasn't anything crazy. I mean, this is one to me where you really got to sit there and think about it and experience it. So,
yeah.
I mean, I gave it an 81. I liked it, but
you mixed it with ginger ale. Is that what you said?
Yeah, but this was back in
it was different time.
2013. Yeah, this was when I first got into bourbon. That was my transition to drinking, on the rocks and then the neat eventually. Yeah, I mean, I drank 9 bottles of this stuff.
Yeah. Ryan, what'd you think about this one? Let me pull it through.
So I gave it a score of an 83. I actually guessed that it was an E.H. Taylor rye. I got a lot of spice to it. I was getting, rye, clove, cedar, hint of butterscotch on the nose, and on the palate, rye, mints, honey, tropical fruit. But I thought it was unbalanced. So, I was in the middle of the pack for me. What's funny is I'm actually keeping a bottle, I have 2 kids, right? And I have so many bottles, I might as well keep some for special occasions. So I have a Four Roses 2013 for my son when he turns 21 or gets married or whatever. But now I'm thinking, maybe I should find another one. Although I scored this one better than the one that was open, for a longer period of time. So I guess if I keep it, crack it and drink it fast with my son, huh?
Yeah. A one-nighter for sure.
Yeah, there you go.
Edwin Vargas said, so Jim Rutledge distilled at MGPI before moving to Four Roses. He took the yeast with him. So there is that connection. And then he says, I believe they use 2 different yeasts there depending on mash bill, F and V.
I never knew that. That's really interesting.
MGP. So actually, I can double check that. I was actually talking with a guy from MGP today who works in the fermentation, so I'm guessing he'll know. Yeah, so that was a really interesting one to me. So the last 2, number 2 and number 1, this is where we get back to the tricky part. And this is kind of where it was just me having a little bit of fun. So
we're not even at the tricky part yet.
Yeah, this was like the guinea pig round of.
This is where you're really making it at that yourself.
Yeah. So we're back to one of my blends on sample 85, and it came in at an 85.75, and it is my blend of the Four Roses small batch 2015 limited edition. So this blend was similar to the 2013, but the percentages were different. So I used 26% of the 2013 single barrel limited edition, 26% of it was a Market Square OBSV private pick, 36% of a 2012 single barrel limited edition, and then 10% of the Elliott Select. So, and this was kind of the interesting thing to me is just playing with those percentages, and I'll put them in the post again so everyone can see them, but playing with them just a little bit. So we have sample 13, which is the exact same ingredients, just different percentages as sample 85. And there's a 7-point swing there. So it's more on the fruitier, the sweeter, and all that. And that's kind of what I was going for with this sample. So let's talk about that one a little bit. In that sample 85, Ryan, what did you think about it?
Yeah, so your other sample, the other blend that you did was my highest score. I gave it an 88. And this other one, this one that you just mentioned, was my second highest. So, hey, man, Bourbonr, I'm purchasing.
I'm actually putting out applications for master blenders. So if there's any distilleries listening, just use this as notes.
No, I liked it. I was getting more of the fruity nose. So on the nose, I thought it was a lighter nose. I was getting some earthiness, licorice, geranium, tropical fruit, and rye. And then on the palate, I got just loads and loads of berry, some honey and caramel. I guess it was an Elmer T. Lee, and I gave it an 86. So I just I was like on that Buffalo Trace. I was like, oh man, this is
I wish Elmer T. was that good.
Yeah, I know.
Well, and that's the other thing. It's like once your mind is like, oh, here's the thing.
Yeah,
it's like you can't get off of it.
And I was like, I feel like I get berries and like fruity stuff out of Elmer T. Lee, so I'm gonna go. Yeah, so but no, I really liked it, man. Good job on the blending.
Thank you. Let's see who Carrie.
I really like this one. I scored it 88, which was the tied for the highest that I scored. I said, what a great nose on this one. Very solid entry. Nice caramel and vanilla. So this one's delicious. It has to be Eagle Rare. And that's what I guessed was Eagle Rare.
Yeah. That's what's interesting is not really any limited editions were included in the guesses. I don't know if y'all just thought I'm really cheap and wasn't going to send out anything good, or or
not so far. You have to say at least.
Yeah, not so far. That's true. We do have one. So I'm thinking I need to put a bounty on if anyone gets a correct guess. But so Travis, what'd you think of this one?
I got a lot of notes on this one. This was my third highest rated. So I rated this 1 point below the actual 2015 small batch. So I think you did a great job here. And of course, I'm a proponent of doing these blends. So I just absolutely love this. I got all the buzzwords, all the tasting notes I love on these. Vanilla, cacao on the nose. I thought it was real bright fruit, like Ryan said. I got dark chocolate. I got the rye. Lots of chocolate, a real long finish. I was trying to think outside the box. I thought maybe I tasted some Heaven Hill yeast, just kind of trying to come up with something different. But I really liked it. At 85, I'd drink it every day.
Yeah.
I mean, that's it.
That's good. So I'll tell my brand distributor that, hey, we got endorsement. These guys are ready to drink it every single day. So
the Bourbonr blend.
I'm drinking one of mine right now. So I mean,
there you go.
Just do it.
Which I need to say, so Travis is the inspiration for a lot of these different blends. I have to give him credit where credit is due. I think, man, we were at a tasting. What was that? Probably 4 or 5 years ago, and you were bringing in some blends, and I'm like, man, that's a really cool thing to do. I need to try doing that.
And the cool thing is, and Blake, I know these are kind of higher echelon blends. You're using some limited editions, but you can have some really good success with just store picks that you've done, blending them together and making. Like I was telling, the one that I had wasn't of limited editions. It was just different store blends blended together, and it was better than any single barrel that I had there. So.
That is a perfect segue, but we're going to go to Brett to get his opinion on this on sample 85 before we jump into that.
This is a perfect example of what happens when you try 8 bourbons side by side. I scored it very high. It was pretty close to Travis. What'd you say, Travis? 85 maybe? I gave it an 84.
85, yeah.
Yeah, I thought it was really good. At that point. I mean, it's got some complexity. I didn't write down probably everything I tasted because I was enjoying it. I got some orange peel, so I got some of the fruit that was talked about earlier. Good proof. A little bit of dryness. I mean, finish was decent. I mean, I liked it. I thought you did a good job.
I appreciate it. So, kind of to piggyback off of Ryan was saying about you can blend some store picks together and they still be really good. Sometimes you can blend store picks together and get 4 world-renowned whiskey bloggers and tasters to rate the highest possible thing.
I don't see Fred Minnick on there.
Yeah. So
I saw Fred at the gym earlier today. He said hi.
Hey, Fred, I'm on a podcast tonight. What about you? What'd you have?
So in the first place with an average score of 86.25, sample 87 is what I'm tagging as poor man's 125th. And because I got bashed for calling things poor man's pappy, I'm calling another one poor man's 125th. And this is a blend of
Did you say you got bashed for that?
Yeah. Oh man.
You started an entire nation full of people mixing that stuff.
That was my entry way into the bourbon world of hate. Like
it's like my
it's a rude welcoming.
Yeah. So what'd you say, Gary?
I was gonna say I used to waste Sazerac 18 on what I call the Sazervat, and I did it with Thomas Handy and plain Sazerac Rye, and I'd be like, "This is the best shit ever," and I was just wasting Saz 18.
Do you have any left you can send me, Gary?
Yeah. Can I get some of the Sazervat?
I sent everybody Sazervat back.
Hey, it was good though. It was really, really good.
It was well worth it. So Poor Man's 125th is a blend of, it's 33% ABC OESK. This is a I don't know the actual, I believe it was, it's 9 years. Sorry, my label's a little off. And then it is 12% OBSV from the Orlando Whiskey Society and Five Star Liquors in Orlando. If you haven't checked out their picks, definitely check them out. Great group of guys. But the OBSV they picked was just like different than any other OBSV, so I thought it'd be good in this one. And then the final is 54% of Bourbonr OBSK.
Uh-oh.
You're fading, bro. Oh, did we lose Blake?
This is the last bottle.
So it is those.
No.
Oh no.
Come back, Blake.
Maybe OBSK, you think?
All right, so Brett, why don't you?
No, it was the Bourbon R pick. What was that? OESK or OBSK?
Blake, why don't you start? Tell us what you thought of this one. Brett, tell me what you thought of this one.
All right, for a poor man's 125th, I liked it more than the regular 125th. I had the most notes, I think, on this one. At oak, brown sugar, caramel, got some good alcohol on it. Not too. There's Blake. Not too sweet. Great balance, oaky dryness, and a really good finish. I mean, this was my highest rated one. I thought this one was the best of the bunch.
This was Travis. You had the highest rated one here too, right?
Yeah. This is when I was drinking this. This is what I would envision the 125th tasting like in my head. I absolutely enjoyed this. I thought it was better than everything else. I gave it a 91. It was my favorite. All my favorite tasting notes were there. I had to know what it was. That was the one I was dying to know what it was, and
it's a blend. That's crazy.
And I'm really glad that it's a blend because I'm sure Blake, when he comes back, will get into why that's important. So I'm going to leave that to him.
Ryan, what do you think, man?
Yeah, so I gave this an 83, so higher echelon. I was getting on the nose licorice, rye spice, spearmint, butterscotch clove. It was a spicier one for me. And then on the palate, I had some herbal notes, mint, cinnamon. I was getting all sorts of things. I also said I got some nice caramel on the back palate. I thought it had a pretty nice mouthfeel to it too. Yeah, I was a fan. I gave it an 83.
Yeah, I said it was very good. I actually called it a 1792. I said Not sure what it is. I can't really place it, but there's a good amount of spearmint and caramel on the palate, and a really decent finish that lasts for a while. Really like this one, so I don't know. I gave it an 84, I guess. So I don't know if this may have been one I rushed a little bit with.
Blake?
He's certainly making an effort to get back.
Here's what this whole thing is telling us, though, is that those master distillers that are making these great blends for us, they don't have shit on us.
No.
Am I back? Am I back?
You're back.
Ah, jeez. Okay.
Well, we already went through the whole
Move on to the summary. We already did all the tasting notes.
Appreciate that. Hold on. What part did you miss
Well,
me?
Blake, why don't you start over with what you put in this? I think
Okay.
I kind of lost it there.
Yeah. Hold on. I gotta open that. I was like, my freaking charger wasn't plugged in, and so then as soon as I go into battery and saving mode, it like shuts everything down.
Yeah.
All right. So this blend, the Poor Man's 125th, as I'm calling it, is 33% of a ABC OESK. It's a 9-year OESK.
Incredible pick, by the way, from 2014.
That was some really good picks that ABC did for a while there. 54% is a Bourbonr OBSK, and this is it was 10 years. And then
I heard that one sucked though.
Yeah, would you rank this thing? Hold on a second here. And then the final is 12% of a store pick done by 5 Star Liquors in Orlando, and then the Orlando Whiskey Society of an OBSV. And that's 8 years, 10 months. And that OBSV had it was really unique to me, had a lot of leather and just really different than any other OBSV I'd had. So blended all those together. And I think it turned out pretty well. I'm definitely putting in my resume at every distillery tonight after this. And
so Blake, let me ask you. So you did 3 of your own blends, right? Or mixing limited editions, and this one was more store pick. So there was it seems like, based on what you said previously, there was a lot of redundance on the OESK and the OBSK. Can you just highlight on those 3, what were the big differences in recipes, or were they all pretty?
Yeah. So with the 2015 blend and the 2013 blend, those were let me do the math here. Those were the same bottles but different percentages. And so 2015 had 26% OBSK, 26% OBSV, and then 47% OESK.
So all 3 of these blends were using the same recipes, just different.
Yep.
Just different picks, or
I don't think you can get the same age with some of them, though.
No, they weren't the same age. Definitely not the same age. And that was the thing of kind of playing around with the percentages of, the actual small batch limited edition tastes a little more oaky. Let me see if I can play around with what I have to get some more of those flavor notes, and that kind of thing.
I think one thing that I've kind of noticed with this whole I think just with Four Roses in general, and most of you guys would probably agree with me, I think that the Four Roses bottles need about 2 or 3 months open before they really hit a great flavor. And I've had this 2017 Four Roses small batch, the new one, for about 2 months now. And I don't think I ever really cared much for it until tonight, when I went back into the pantry over there, grabbed it, poured it, and damn, this is really good right now.
I love it. I think it's definitely way better than last year. But I liked it right out of the bottle, which is odd.
I think all these, they kind of open up, and then what we're also seeing is that they also die at some point. So maybe we shouldn't keep 1,000 open bottles all the time. We should actually open and drink, which is good. But it's a very cool thing to see with people who have such far-ranging palates. To me, Travis is one of the most refined palates that I know, because with Four Roses, I mean, he's been drinking Four Roses since he was born. I think he was born at the Four Roses Distillery, but it's interesting to kind of see. But I find it interesting how on the blends that you made, like our differences of what we rated were so close, and they were so much farther apart on the actual small batches.
Mm-hmm.
So this is where I have something to say here. I believe that mixing the single barrels together, they're generally probably higher proof because they're younger and from higher tiers. So you're mixing these single barrels together, the flavor is going to be a lot more in your face. Whereas, as I was talking about, the 125th is very subtle flavors. A lot of these limited edition small batches take a lot of time and care, and you really got to think about it, and you can really uncover a lot of cool flavors. Whereas if you just mix 3 single barrels at 120 proof together, like, yeah, it's going to slap you in the face with flavor, but that's kind of it. So if you're tasting an ounce, yeah, those 3 single barrels mixed together are really going to pop.
Mm-hmm.
But
you can't get the age. The small batches, the limited edition small batches have the age on us. That's the one thing they can get with us.
Some of these weren't too far off though, because with the blends that I did with the limited edition ones, the single barrel limited editions, they're in the 13, 14, 15 year range, which isn't too far off on at least the where's it, 2015.
Right, no, you're right. You're right. I just meant in general.
Yeah.
Because I've done that before. I did that with this one. I used the 2013 and the 2012, and it ended up at 110 proof, which is probably higher than most of the small batches. But
yeah, and that is true. I tested the proof on a few of these. I should have written that down, but they were different. But I think it kind of all goes back to is we all say we like high proof and we like age and oak and tannins and all this stuff. But a lot of times when you strip everything else away, sweetness and drinkability usually ranks higher, just in a blind setting. But that's kind of the fun part. So I kind of missed everyone's note. Or what were you going to say, Ryan?
Yeah, I think this also brings up the blends, and especially how high they were ranked. And I actually had a conversation with Ed Blay about this. He did that Old Baldy blend, which who knows. But I know in the whiskey world, and particularly Scotch, a master blenders and blending from different distilleries is pretty popular. And I know it's probably a little bit more different or difficult in the bourbon, industry, but maybe that's where things evolve. Is that outside? I know single barrels are pretty popular, but being able to blend, or be able to blend from multiple distilleries to see how things taste, because you can see just from Four Roses how much success and just on this blind that it's done. So if you do these blending from different distilleries and take the good things from this distillery and the good things from that distillery and blend it together, what type of magic could happen.
I think you also, it helps to have an audience to actually try your blends. I think like for Travis for probably most of you guys, just living in the heartland there, you got guys who could call any night to come over and try your blends. Whereas, I make it and I feed it to my dogs and they just don't give me much feedback on it. And so, I think especially for the guys working in distilleries who can mix all this stuff, anybody would come out there and say, oh, let me try this latest blend you got and let me see how good it is. But I think blending's an art, and I think it's a part of the hobby that's underrated. It's a part of the hobby that I think was kind of, a lot of people were into it in the beginning. I think it's kind of died out a little bit, but I do think it's something cool to go back to. We have all these open bottles. Why not try to make something better from individual parts?
Blake, how much time did you spend doing all these blends? Was it something you did quickly, or did you kind of toy with it and throw some stuff away?
This was actually the idea for the Bourbonr Blind for last month, but I didn't have the blends together. They just weren't really where I liked them. So actually, I have the advantage of there's a distillery in Jacksonville. My office is next door.
Oh no!
So yeah. So I went over there a couple times. We would blend and taste, and then I'd bring it home. I blend and taste, and until I got something that I really liked, and then put that together. So I mean, all in all, it was probably a month process. And like whenever I said I was drinking way too much trying to put these blends together, like it really was, because you spend an hour and a half on one blend, and then you never really get it to the right spot. So then you're kind of coming back the next night. Okay, let me try this again. Where did I start? What do I think it's missing? Then you're tasting all the individual bottles to say, okay, if I need sweetness, I can go to this. Okay, if I need, more oak, more tannin, more body, I can go to the Elliott Select. So yeah, it was a longer process. It took a little bit of time, but
I think that's so. Like these blends that you had, I know, like in the Poor Man's Pappy, they say, make sure that it sits and mingles for 4 weeks to 6 weeks. I can't remember what it is. So were these things sitting for a while as you?
No. So and this is kind of the crazy part is, so all my blends I actually throw in the blender, like a legitimate Ninja Bullet blender, and blend them up. And yeah, it proved right on the last blind tasting we did. There's hyper decanting. It goes back to Nathan Myhrvold's book, Modernist Cuisine, with hyper decanting wine. And so I don't let them sit. I blend them. I put them in the sample bottles and ship them out. Yeah. Yeah, that's
I love it.
The blender is the way to go. Unfortunately, it can make your morning smoothies taste a little stronger than you'd expect.
Oh, right.
Hey, man.
Anyways,
Everywhere.
All right, well, let's wrap it up there for now. And I appreciate you guys coming on. Kind of subjecting yourself to a little bit of this madness. Even though there were some tricks in there, I think everyone did a really good job, and hopefully had a good time while drinking it as well. So let's kind of go back around the table and just tell everyone where they can find you, and where they can follow you, social media, all that kind of stuff. So Ryan, let's start with you.
Yeah, so thebourbonbuddy.com, and then I'm also on Instagram at the Bourbon Buddy. And thank you, Blake. Yeah.
There it is. There it is. All right, Carrie, you're up next.
Carrie from suburbia.com, SEBOURBIA, Twitter at bourbon_gamer. And of course, you can always find me on the Bourbonr Facebook group, my favorite group to sit around and watch all day long. Find me there, follow me, love me, hate me. I don't really care.
All right, Travis, the King of Four Roses.
so I just have to say that I absolutely appreciated this and enjoyed it. And I hope I get to do it again at some point. But this really solidifies my thought process, because I absolutely love blending, especially Four Roses. So this was a great experience for me. It really strengthens my beliefs. And I'm on Facebook or whatever. I don't have any, Twitter or any of that stuff, but you can find me in Louisville. If you want to come to Louisville, Kentucky and have a good time, hit me up.
Louisville?
Louisville.
There we go. It's
There we go.
Did we hang out at Haymarket yet, or?
Yeah.
Nah, fuck that place. Sorry, I said that bad word.
Had to be said.
All right, Brett, finish us off.
First of all, Blake, thank you very much. These were unbelievable to get samples like this to try. This was a blast. So thank you. You can, and again, Bourbon and Banter, bourbonbanter.com, at Bourbon Banter. You can find me at Brett Atlas if you want to listen to me. Appreciate it. Thank you.
Hey, I don't know if you know this place called Deetsville, but they make.
Here we go.
Shut up.
All right, I'm going to finish it on that note. Thank you, everyone, for watching. I'll be able to put up all the different blends, all the different rankings, everything else on the Bourbonr blog. Probably, maybe not tomorrow. Hopefully, early next week, depending on my schedule tomorrow morning. But thank you, everyone, for watching. Again, hope to have you back next month. Thanks.
Thanks, Blake.